chapter 2, I think you know the story, right? It kind of goes like this. At least I hope you know the story. When the day of Pentecost had arrived, we won't go into that holiday. That'd be a fun excursion, but that's not where I'm going. When the day of Pentecost arrived, they were all together in one place. When they're talking about all together, how many was that? According to Acts 1:15, there were 120 people all told. That was the whole thing. 120 people. There in Jerusalem, the day of Pentecost arise, and suddenly, verse 2, there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. And you know what transpires, exactly what Jesus said would transpire. Acts chapter 1, verse 8. And you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you shall be the witnesses to me. You shall be, it's what you're going to be. Witnesses unto me, Judea, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the other parts of the world. This coming of the Spirit is identified as day one for the church. Because this is when the church was birthed. With the arrival of the Spirit. Look down with me to verse 7. And they were amazed and astonished, the people who were standing there listening to what was going on. The Holy Spirit came and they heard them talking, and there were interpreters going on. I mean, they heard them talk, they heard the people talking, and they heard them, they didn't hear them like, they heard them all in their own language. It was an amazing thing, and they were amazed and astonished, saying, Are not these who are speaking? Are they not all, verse 7, Galileans? And how is it that we hear each of us in his own native language? And he talks about the known world there, Mesopotamia and Pontus and Asia and Egypt and Libya and all over the place. They were from actually all over, Rome and everywhere. And they heard them talking, and what they were talking about was, well, look at verse 11. And Jews and proselytes and Cretans and Arabians, we hear them telling in our own tongues the mighty works of God. And all were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, what does this mean? What does this mean? God had gotten their attention. Like he alluded to, he would do. Book of Joel, other places. He speaks of doing this. And he had their attention to get the question rose, what does this mean? Peter stands up and tells them what it means. That's what he begins in verse 14, and he runs it all the way through. We're going to go down to verse 40. Pick up there. And Peter, with many other words, bore witness and continued to exhort them, saying, Save yourselves from this crooked generation. You can look it over, see what went on in that message. It's not my aim this morning. My aim is this. So those who received his word were baptized, and there were added that day about 3,000 souls to the church. So, what did the church go for? How many were there before? 120. And how many are there now? And that happened in one day. Whew. What an increase. I mean, wow. That would just kind of swamp you, wouldn't it? I mean, there's 120 of us here, and all of a sudden, there's over 3,000 of us here. And, you know, normally if that would happen, that would completely wash out the little group of 120 who were there. I mean, it would kind of like wash them out. They would be so swamped by all these people coming in from all over the world with all these languages, and they're all coming in here now at one time, and they would just kind of lose what that group of 120 was. But it didn't. It didn't, because of what was in the genetic code of how the church operates, how it functions. From day one, this is how it operates. Goes with me to verse 42. And they continued steadfastly, devoted themselves, adhered to, gave themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship and the breaking of bread and the prayers. There it is, folks. It's the genetic code of what we inherit from our forefathers. And these traits, to greater or lesser degree, will show up visibly in the church.